Happy Saturday, everybody, and welcome in the Smite Challenger Circuit, day number 2 of the playoffs as we move into North America. Aggro joined by Lermy Wormy here on the desk. And Lermy, we've had some crazy stuff happen in NA. The number 1 seed coming out of that Smite Challenger Circuit has fallen to the lower bracket courtesy of the SOC team, the upsets coming from Hype Unit, and we're going to see them play here today.
If you ask me, I'm not super surprised. Hype Unit have been a strong team, and they have been a team for a long time at the very least. They have that synergy between Layerssss, oBoronic, and MORWolves since they've been coming from Astral on the console side of things. They're world champions, so definitely not one team to doubt there, and they'll be up against Baskin and the boys, and this is definitely going to be a great set.
I mean, Baskin and the boys, one of the teams that you have to give a lot of respect to just by the players on it. Of course, they were tied for first place with Bloogie and the Woogies. It just feels like those two teams were so far ahead of everybody else coming into this, but for Bloogie and the Woogies to drop down into that lower bracket with their play yesterday, I feel like it's pretty clear that we're going to see Baskin and the boys have to give Hype Unit some respect. This team brought a lot of different looks. molluskk in that support role, it's traditionally a jungler, but obviously role swapping for Layerssss, say, in his primary role. That's going to be the big question mark for me here, Lermy. The synergy between Layerssss and oBoronic and Wolves that you already touched on, I think that's going to be just fine. It's really how well is this duo lane going to do for Hype Unit up against Meerkat and Geno.
I was super impressed with molluskk's play on Thursday. I think that he had a really great game on the Horus. Maybe not as well on the Kuzenbo, but I think that's just because he likes to play those really aggressive picks. He's got that jungle mindset like you noted, so he does push on that aggression a lot. The difference here is that a lot of these Guardians are not necessarily able to do the same things as the Assassins he's so used to, but so far, my impression of molluskk's support is 2 thumbs up.
I mean, molluskk in the jungle was always a snowball type of player. He wanted to get the ball rolling early and then take the team out of the game pretty much instantly, and sometimes that led to being in the wrong position, an over-aggressive player at times. But you'd rather have that in support than someone who's too passive, so it's worked pretty well so far for Hype Unit. We'll see what they want to go with today as we are ready for picks and bans for game number 1. Baskin and the boys in that first pick position. And we already talked about Meerkat and Geno over there in the duo lane. But I think that since joining this team, Haddix in that solo lane has really stood out to me with how well he's played.
I agree with you there. He was picking up the Guan Yu in his previous sets, and that's kind of a character we don't get to see very much. I think that people don't really value him perhaps as much as he deserves, but I think that he is really good at playing those initiator gods, and gods that can really just be a menace to the enemy's backline. That's what he really likes to do. And so I hope they put him back on something like that, but as we're looking at the bans here, we've got Ullr and Horus taken away by Baskin's boys, and Hype Unit's going to take away that Merlin, which is kind of interesting to me because I think that's a god that oBoronic really, really likes to play, so for them to take that out, they really have to be concerned about Baskin.
And I think that's pretty fair. Baskin has looked pretty good so far during this tournament and throughout this SCC time. Maybe ringed it in a little bit from the trolling he was doing a little bit last year. Seems to be in a more comfortable spot in the mid lane than he was in solo, just in terms of how hard he wants to really push the envelope in that mid lane, and he seems to want to prove something there with those mages. As Hype Unit continue to ban someone out, it's this Hell and then Meerkat with that Xbalanque. Meerkat has picked that pretty much every single game it's been on the table for them. That leaves open the Thor, and we've talked about everybody on this Baskin and the boys team, save for Mask, which is crazy because Mask is still one of the premier junglers in all of Smite.
I mean, did you see his rat gameplay? That's a classic Mask pick, and so when he's on that rat, he kind of just goes off, and Thor, very similar to Rat in that fashion that he has the semi-global ultimate, comes crashing down and does a ton of damage, so I'm sure that Thor is definitely another character that he's going to be looking for, but the Jing way is going to be locked in for Hype Unit, and honestly, I'm okay with that, because another player that we haven't talked about is GuyJ, who is kind of the newbie to this roster. He's a ranked player for the most part, so I think getting him on that super safe pick is really important.
Yeah, GuyJ has had some really good performances, some lackluster ones, kind of what you expect from a new guy to the competitive scene. But I think that there's a lot of upside to GuyJ's game. I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he's a very talented player. As Haddix goes to one of his classics, the King Arthur, feel like he's going to play this every single time you let him. just spams it in ranked, spams it in competitive, is basically down to play Arthur every single game, and for good reason. He's usually dominating whenever he's on that pick. And Baskin goes to one of his favorites as well in this Scylla. So a lot of damage on the board already for what Baskin and the boys have.
They do have that Scylla, but on the other side we've got Discordia picked up, and we saw oBoronic pick this up in his previous set, so for sure he is comfortable on this character, and I think it's also a great pick into the Scylla as well, because to be able to use that little bit of an immunity frame you can get from the third ability, it's going to be super good in terms of getting CC'd into any Scylla damage. And that's another thing to consider too, is that when we saw Scylla played last, at least yesterday, we saw a ton of setups specifically for her. And that's not to say that Baskin can't hit his stuff on his own, but there's just not that same level of CC or setup for the Scylla, and that's kind of concerning at this point.
We'll see what Baskin and the boys are able to draft in the second half to maybe set up for that. And with no Kumbhakarna ban, that's something that Geno's played a lot this year. I think that might be the direction that he goes, and it is great setup for that Scylla and a comfort pick for the support here for BNB. Hypeuta kind of split the difference here. A lot of hunters that Meerkat has played so far this year. Xbalanque, Jingwei, Hachiman all taken off the board. And Wolves going to get something more aggressive. This Sobek has really been seen mostly in solo lane at the SPL level, but it looks to me like it's going to be support this game.
I like this decision here. Pick that flex pick up and actually use it to flex. And so Wolves can really get his choice of things, because of course he is going up against Haddix's King Arthur, and that is something to be feared. And of course, you want to make Wolves as comfortable as possible against such a scary matchup. So picking up that Osiris for him, a really good look. And to finish off the draft from Baskin and the boys is going to be a Hu Yi and a Terra, and I'm liking where this is going. They've got a lot of area control here between the Scylla and the Hu Yi, and altogether very well rounded.
A lot of team fight presence for sure here for Baskin and the boys, but Hype Unit match some of it with this Hun Bat selection, get a little bit of AoE in that team fight for themselves. Lurby, which draft are you liking more here for game one?
If I'm just talking draft, I've got to go with Baskin and the boys. I think that it's just a little bit better when it comes to that late game team fight. Of course, Layers on this Hunbots, and it getting picked up 10th pick of all things is kind of insane, but at the same time, looking at it overall through all of the possibilities, it's going to be, for me, Baskin and the boys.
We'll see if that comes to pass. Casters, take us away for game number one.
Thank you so much, Aggro and Lermy. Fuzzy Wuzzy here, joined with me, Alpha Jackal. And Alpha, we're already seeing some aggression coming up as Sobek trying to get a good pluck on there and just missing it slowly. But these 5-man rotations are something that we're used to seeing by now.
Well, I mean, this is a very early team aggressive play from Hype Unit, and I really do like it. They want to just try and get those wards out quite early on, the free wards that you get at the beginning of the game, just to see exactly what Geno and Meerkat are going to be doing over on this duo lane side. And there's potential for an invade as well if they really wanted to go for it. They have the aggressive Sobek, they have the Jingwei as well, and it's into a Terra who doesn't really like to be aggressed on in the early levels.
Yeah, Terra, you don't necessarily want to go into a Terra behind necessarily, especially when you're level down. So the invade was definitely a smart idea, as molluskk is going to go ahead and pick up NotGeno. And I really like the aggression that's coming out of molluskk and Hype Unit, because just making sure that Hou Yi can't get into that corner door as Relentless GuyJ is just destroying Geno.
Yeah, I like the pluck from molluskk. He's going to go in yet again. He can just pluck at level 1. Sacrifices clear, but gets some good kill potential going. Geno avoids that persistent gust and should be A-okay, but that is shell down quite early on. molluskk playing this extremely aggressively, and I have to say I like it.
Yeah, the desk was talking about which duo lane is going to be the one that comes on top, and molluskk just barely missing that pluck is still going to get some damage onto NotGeno, but this Hype Unit squad is playing so aggressive, and it's something that, you know, we've seen from them in the past, and I think if they just continue to push this down, they could really control this game out of the duo lane.
And you have to be really scared if you are Baskin and the boys. If they're controlling it from the dual lane, what's that going to mean for the rest of the map? You have Layerssss on this Hunbots, who's just a ticking time bomb until he hits level 5, and Geno got plucked back yet again, gets his monolith up, but minions are just too much for him to handle. molluskk gets the first blood, and I can't think of someone who's deserved it more. He has been absolutely unreal so far in the first 2 minutes.
The plucks have been insane from him. He's consistently getting Geno out of position, and we were talking about it. You don't want to play Terra from behind, and now Terra is behind, and Jing Wei getting an assist. She's level 3. You know, Meerkat's level 2 on this Ho Yi. Jing Wei gets way better overall, and once the game gets into that later phase. So I think this is a huge win for GuyJ, especially he's not known in this competitive scene right now, but he's making his name known alongside of molluskk.
And this is just what Hype Unit want. They want to be able to get GuyJ comfortable. They want him to be a bit ahead, so therefore he has this flexibility, he has this safety net, almost. But then they can just focus on the rest of the map doing what they want to do. They know that oBoronic is going to play it quite well. They know that Wolves is going to be, you know, finding this King Arthur matchup as Meerkat has his beats force yet again. It's molluskk doing the work, and the purple buff invade's going to go ahead just to give GuyJ that extra bit of breathing room now. I wouldn't be surprised if molluskk starts rotating early just to allow GuyJ to get some solar farm and start exacerbating this lead.
Yeah, and you really just want to focus, and in my opinion, you want to focus the title character of Baskin and the Boys, which is Baskin. I feel like the entire set has always been run through him, and especially on gods like Scylla. We saw him on Raijin. We saw him playing Merlin, too. Those are characters that you do not want them to be left alone. So Scylla, once she gets into that later game, becomes very scary, and right now she's got the level lead, and if I'm molluskk, I do want to focus Baskin.
Yeah, and I do agree that they have good setup for the Scylla as well. I mean, you have a look at what they have available. They have the Thor Dunk, they have King Arthur's, Excalibur's Wrath, they have Terror, Stuns and Roots. They also have Ho Yi to help set up for the Scylla. So it's not like Scylla's going to have to freehand most of her abilities. It's going to be pretty well defined that you're going to get hit by Armor Monster 9 times out of 10, especially when Baskin's as patient as he is.
Yeah, Baskin is known for being one of the best Smite players to play the game, and when you have great potential setup from not only King Arthur and Thor and Terra and Ho Yi, you have potential for yourself with that Sikkim. So Baskin can set up things for himself, and with how safe he usually plays, he doesn't usually get got out, but it doesn't seem like he sees molluskk in the lurking, just missing the pluck, but he's going to push. He's going to push Baskin out. Here comes the Amma Monster. The root coming out. molluskk popping a beautiful shell, but NotGeno picking up molluskk with that beautiful root.
And that's the setup we were talking about. The Terror root just allows Baskin to wait it out, and the second that root comes out, bang, Scylla roll is a guaranteed hit, confirmed kill there onto molluskk. The shell stops the Armor Monster from getting reset, and that's a worthwhile use of that shell, I feel. Even though molluskk was dead to rights from that Terror root, just stopping that Scylla roll getting reset, stopping more damage coming out from Armor Monster, just completely negates the rest of the fight there. Just one death on the side of Hype Unit means they can defend these potential invades that could have come up from Baskin and the Boys.
Well, speaking of potential invades, we're seeing Terra start to rotate onto GuyJ, but molluskk is right behind NotGeno. Geno's just going to try to make sure that he can disengage from this, but there's a wonderful little squad coming from Hype Unit as Layerssss is now making a part of the party. He throws the monkey on the Meerkat because they do not want Meerkat to have this purple buff.
And I love what Geno was doing there, making sure that he had his passive available to him for as long as possible so he could avoid getting engaged on by molluskk. But instead, Meerkat's going to be the one engaged on the pluck. Does miss, out come the Suns, and he's stunned into the Suns. molluskk does hit level 5, and it's going to go lurking in the waters, giving himself some nice damage mitigation, and he's going to be A-OK. Ult for ult trade, and I think that comes out in favor of Baskin and the Boys, because molluskk is a bit less safe. If he misses plucks again, he's going to have to be a lot more peeled for.
Yeah, I agree that Baskin and the Boys ended up being more on top of that just because they needed to reset. But this big fight over here in the solo lane, nothing really too much going to come from it. I just think this just shows you how much of a lane bully Haddix is, especially on King Arthur, as the desk was saying. You know, Wolves is playing another lane bully, Osiris, but I feel like this win goes for Haddix, but Layerssss is making a little bit of a rotation right now, as there goes Wolves diving in with the Lord of the Afterlife just to make sure that he has the lane pressure so that Layerssss can get this free totem.
Layerssss was coming over to look for a potential gank, but as you can see on the minimap, 2 wards placed beautifully by Haddix himself, one on the top and one on the bottom side of the Fire Giant Pit, meaning there's no real way that Layerssss can get in for this gank unless he wraps behind the tower or somewhat, which is something you're not going to do unless you're a Mercury. So this is a very safe place for Haddix to be, and he wants to be safe because you need to ramp up this King Arthur a bit. Yes, he's a good lane bully, but if you don't ramp him up correctly in the laning phase, it becomes very difficult to transition a lead for yourself into that mid game and into these mid lane team fights. So I do like the idea of Layerssss still coming over here, despite the fact it's warded, just to try and put Haddix down a bit.
What I also like is the aggressive wards out of Hype Unit. I look at the map right now. You said they want to aggress onto Mask, or onto this, but Mask is going up into the air. He's going to go ahead and land down onto Layerssss, but he's going to land into a Fear No Evil as the Terra is going to get the Terra's blessing. Layerssss is not looking so hot as Mask picks up Layerssss. Baskin is in the I'm a Monster, the wall coming out, but Wolves, another Lord of the Afterlife expended so that he does not get hit by that I'm a Monster. He's going to go up into the air. Haddix keeping him up in there, as Haddix will fall to oBoronic, and that's a 1-for-1 trade as molluskk is looking a little bit weak. He's going to try to spin it off, but Baskin picks up another kill. Geno looking a little bit weak. The root won't happen for oBoronic, and that's just going to be a 2-for-1 trade in favor of Baskin and the boys.
And that just starts with Hype Unit looking for an invade onto the blue buff, which was spawning in about 5 to 10 seconds, but they weren't the ones in position to aggress on it. They were still waiting on rotation from oBoronic, they were still waiting on molluskk to find his way into the fight. Meanwhile, Baskin and the boys, they were ready. They were prepared for that blue buff invade. They knew that was going to happen from a minute ago when Layerssss first showed up over on that right-hand side. So credit to Baskin and the boys for that great defensive stop there. That puts them within touching distance of parity here in terms of the gold lead. They had the kill lead, and this just tells me Hype Unit have been farming up much, much better. But you have a look at the level disparity, it doesn't tell that same story, because Mask is 2 levels up on Layerssss.
Yeah, and it just has to be barely 2 levels, but I really think that the farming has really just come out of GuyJ, that he's been left alone for a very long time, I'd say about 5 minutes now. And that's what you were talking about earlier. You wanted Jing to be left alone so that he can just continue to farm, because once he gets that level 14, 15 mark, he just becomes an unstoppable machine, kind of like Scylla when she hits that level 16, 17 mark.
Yeah, and the build path that Baskin's gone for here is just designed to be as much pressure as possible in terms of his poke ability. You see that he's got the Mage's Blessing, he's also got that Spirit Desolation online for that early flat pen, as well as some cooldown reduction. Sitting on 20% right now, and if he gets that kill with that Crush, 2 seconds off cooldown on the next Crush, 2 seconds off cooldown of Sikkim, it's a dangerous time to be fighting this Scylla at this point. It's only level 10. The mid laners are going to be key to these next few team fights, and that's without GuyJ potentially rotating in.
Well, the gold lead is showing that it is right around 1,200. Nothing to scoff at if you're Baskin and the boys. Just usually something that you just got to have to keep an eye on to make sure that it doesn't snowball too bad. But I really want to take a look at this duo lane side. I feel like that if GuyJ is able to get ahead of the rotations on Meerkat and making sure that that setup and that potential happens, could you see Hype Unit running this through GuyJ rather than like oBoronic or Layerssss like we've seen in the past?
Well, this just comes down to experience in my point, as Meerkat's going to get dove on the tower. Not going to take too much damage from that lurking in the waters, but the rotation is here from Geno just to make sure he is safe. oBoronic lurking around in the jungle as well. But back to your point, it just comes down to experience. And the more experienced ADC players will make sure that they kind of run the show. oBoronic found himself against Mask in the jungle, and that's not where he wants to be. But Anvil of Dawn is down, so I expect the trade out to happen here, as Mask is left on an island. Who's going to pick up the kill here? Fear No Evil is going to come out, and GuyJ is going to be the recipient, as Geno now finds himself isolated.
I think Geno's going to be able to disengage, but I did hear the I'm a Monster get popped from Baskin in that fight, so that was 2 ults and 1-for-1 trade for Hype Unit. Do you think that more falls in the Hype Unit category of a win just because they were able to get Mask out of position? Or does that fall more in Baskin and the boys because that gets Baskin ahead of more of oBoronic?
You said it yourself, you can phrase it either way to put it into either team has won that engagement. And to be honest, I kind of think if they're going to be playing through Baskin, if they're going to find fights through the Scylla more often, then the win does go to Baskin and the boys. But that just, it means that they have to work on getting the win from that fight a bit more. So right away, it just comes to Hype Unit winning that engagement slightly. But if Baskin, like I said, if Baskin and the boys can just push that fight advantage in their favor and start playing through Scylla a bit more, maybe have Scylla rotate towards Meerkat's lane and try to put GuyJ a bit further behind, then that fight becomes a Baskin and the boys win hands down.
Well, Baskin's getting collapsed on as he's going to get plucked behind. He's going to run into the mid lane, the I'm a Monster, just to stop the lurking in the waters from slowing him. But Layerssss is really weak. Meerkat missing the ricochet. One auto will do it as Meerkat gets the kill onto Layerssss. Baskin gets the kill onto molluskk. oBoronic is not in a happy place as Mast and NotGeno trying to find him. The clap coming in. oBoronic will die to Meerkat. Meerkat now focusing on to relentless GuyJ. GuyJ just getting rooted out, but the Terra and the Thor are going to both disengage from this as they're just going to focus back up to farming.
Huge engagement onto Baskin, but it's not done yet over here on the left-hand side. Up in the air goes Mast, but GuyJ, he's been around the block. He knows exactly what's going to happen, and he was also ulted on top of a ward, so, you know, props to the warding coming out from Hype Unit there. But that entire engagement came out from an engagement onto Baskin, and they just weren't able to pick him up. I think it just came down to a miscommunication in the CC timings. We saw that Layerssss threw out a Sacred Monkey and then got plucked away, did Scylla, and that just meant that the Sacred Monkey bounce wasn't going to happen for him, wasn't able to teleport in time. Red buff invade is good from Baskin and the boys as they start to etch out their first lead in the game. It's only 500 gold, but you have to start somewhere.
It's only 500 gold, but Baskin is already doing crazy amounts of damage at level 13. We almost saw him kill Layers, and then on top of that, he did a lot of damage to molluskk. So Scylla's starting to become online and starting to get a little scary because of that 2-level difference in the mid lane. GuyJ just making sure that he can secure his own Chad Harpy and Alpha Harpy, as he's also going to secure that purple buff.
And this just comes down to, you know, a bit of a different experience, I would say. Baskin's going to get engaged upon yet again in the mid lane. Avoids the apple at the first bounce, but eats it on the second one. Forces into an Iron Monster just in case Les had that Fear No Evil. And that's again, I think that actually comes down into a win for Hype Unit if they're able to pressure Baskin. They know that his relics are up, but they know that Iron Monster is down. So if they manage to catch him unawares and get that bit of burst before the relics come off, they can actually get that kill there. But it comes out to me between Baskin and GuyJ. Who's been more effective? Baskin, 100%. He's played his lead much better than GuyJ has, and that's just because Baskin and the boys have forced more fights into the mid lane, or should I say, Hype Unit have done. They're the ones that have been forcing these fights, and they're the ones that are paying for it. Something has to change in their game plan, I think.
It just seems like that the Hype Unit recognizes that if you focus on Baskin, you can focus on winning this game, as oBoronic gets half hit by a Thor Hammer. Nothing else going to come from that, it seems, but just, you know, invading. It just seems like that Hype Unit understand that Baskin is the guy to go for. But Baskin has just always been that kind of elusive character when he's able to get away, and just, I think if you have to go on Baskin, you have to full commit on him, and if you full commit right now, currently, Baskin and the boys have a gold lead, they have the experience lead. It just screams disaster for Hype Unit.
Well, they have been full-on focusing him in these fights, and that last fight that we saw, they did full 3-man engage onto him, but they just... It just wasn't the perfect engagement for them, and Baskin, if you don't get a perfect engage on him, he will find a way to exploit it and put it back into his team's favor. And that's exactly what happened. He gets out on 1 health, and the rest of Hype Unit just collapsed because their initial engagement doesn't go the way that they want it to. molluskk over here just making sure that the Gold Fury is warded, and the early game lead which molluskk did have, and don't forget, he had First Blood on him, has now been eradicated completely as GeNo finds himself in the lead. Mast goes up into the sky looking for oBoronic.
He's going to land onto oBoronic. The spin comes out. The beads, the perfect beads out of oBoronic. He's also going to throw out the ult. That's going to miss, but the I'm a Monster. Baskin's going to go up in the air. He's going to hit Layerssss. A perfect ultimate from Baskin. He's going to look for molluskk possibly, but it does look like we're just going to go ahead and de-ward and just get their attention onto this Gold Fury. But GuyJ is around to see if maybe he can get something out of it. Airstrike is available. GeNo just making sure that no one can really engage. The Suns do come out, and Baskin and the boys secure the Gold Fury.
molluskk, without his looking in the waters, is just going to be a sitting duck here. Out comes the Terra's Blessing from GeNo. molluskk going to be the first one to fall. Haddix makes his rotation known. Wolves is next on chopping block. Double tap is good, but he's still a bit tanky on that Osiris thanks to that Breastplate of Valor. oBoronic! Hello? Where did he go? He's just disappeared.
That was a I'm a monster, but like, sick 'em boys, I'm gonna crush him, and just dead. That was just a dead oBoronic, and that's all you can really say. That's a Gold Fury for Baskin and the boys, a couple of kills, and a tier 1 tower, as now they can start making their way over to this Pyromancer, and their gold lead now is just starting to spiral to the point where can Hype Unit come back if they keep engaging onto these kind of, I would say, not necessarily messy engages, but not connected engagements.
That certainly does have to change in Hype Unit. You are right. They need to be full-on focused. They need to make sure they come into the fight with an absolute game plan, that they're all on the same exact wavelength on. Otherwise, it's just going to keep going the same way over and over again. Or they just need to change it up completely and start focusing on somebody else. It's no longer Baskin that's completely and utterly far ahead at level 16. Meerkat's also level 16. Haddix made his rotation felt much more impactful in that fight than Wolves did. So already you're looking at all 3 lanes just being, you know, a bit less effective than Baskin and the boys, and that's not something you can win a game with if all 3 lanes are this, you know, outclassed even.
And that does come down to the fact that I think that Mask has just had a pressure around him. You know, he's just been having this control of the jungle consistently, whether that be on the enemy jungle side or his own jungles. He's been always on these timers. And to me, it just seems like that when you have Mask on your team and he's able to help you with kills, I mean, he's been a part of 60% of the kills for Baskin and the boys, so it just seems like that he's been able to set up kills for the entire squad.
I'm having a look at Hype Unit's builds right now. Just the Divine Ruin coming out for anti-heal right now. Yes, you're only up against a Terra, and Terra's healing, you know, isn't the strongest, but when she goes into that Earth of Fury ultimate, that is when you want anti-healing on your side. And don't forget, you also want to anti-heal against Haddix on that King Arthur. You also want the anti-heal against the Devour's Gauntlets on the Hu Yi, just to try and break down these targets a bit quicker. And Divine Ruin, at this stage of the game, I don't think that's going to cut it just enough. I'm looking at maybe going into a Pestilence here for Wolves just to try and round it out a bit more. And I would like to see a Brawler's Beat Stick. I would also like to see Wolves not try and play this aggressively as Baskin finds himself yet another kill.
Well, Baskin was just in the I'm a Monster. The beads coming out onto Layers to stop the Sikkim Crush combo. NotGeno is running in the back, but look at Mask. He's going to go up into the air. He's going to collapse down onto Boronic. The Terra's Blessing coming out as Mask picks up Boronic, but the Fire Giant was pulled, doing some damage onto Mask. molluskk is lurking into the waters. Haddix trying to set up something, a big Crush, a big Sikkim. molluskk will fall to Mask, and that is a double kill. And on the other side, Meerkat is trying to do some crazy damage to GuyJ. GuyJ going to go up into the airstrike. Gonna look to possibly run away because look who just showed up, big boy Baskin. As there's the disengage from the squad, and Baskin and the boys have been on top of these team fights consistently. I don't think we've seen any kills from Hype Unit in the past 2 or 3 team fights.
No, I don't think we've seen a kills from Hype Unit in the past 10 minutes even, and that just comes down to Baskin and the boys playing these team fights perfectly even. I mean, the engaged target has been clear. It has been Baskin. They've been looking for Baskin almost every single time. Baskin gets out on pretty much no health every single time. Yeah, fantastic. What do we do now, Hype Unit? They just don't have a plan B. Plan B needs to come out at some point. They need to be discussing plan B, plan C, even plan D at this point. And that has to come out very soon, because if I'm Baskin and the boys, I'm looking at extending this lead a bit further. I'm looking at trying to take down some towers, maybe even getting this Fire Giant. But my next port of call would 100% be this next Gold Fury.
Yeah, the next Gold Fury is an Oni Fury. Give them a little bit more pressure on any lane they so choose. I really think that it's just, you know, Baskin is just squirrely Baskin. He's been able to just consistently be out of these positions, even though he's always in the correct position he needs to be for these crazy damage numbers that he's dealing. I mean, look at this. He's going to peek around, just try to see if maybe he can get Layers. Doesn't get Layers right there, but it just seems like he's always in the correct position, always the correct time, and that's just Baskin's MO.
That's just Baskin being Baskin, like you said. This is a veteran of the game who's played in multiple different seasons, multiple different roles. He knows the game inside out, and when you're considered one of the best players, if not the best player on the planet, that comes with a few things like incredible map knowledge, incredible positioning, and also the ability to hit freehand I'm a Monsters time and time again. Oni Fury, like I said, is going to be the next objective call here. Crush should secure it. No, Hype Unit managed to steal it away. I think that was the Fear No Evil as Mask goes up into the sky looking for the re-engage.
He's going to go on to Wolves, as Wolves is the target, as Meerkat is now on a killing spree. The sun was dropped. Hype Unit lose Wolves, but gain an Oni Fury, maybe a little bit of advantage that they want, but Boronic and Layers are now not in a good place, as the Crush doing crazy damage to Layers. Haddix picking up the kill, NotGeno picking up Boronic, and that's... I call that a win for Baskin and the boys, because the only person that could stop this potential Fire Giant is molluskk on Sobek, and he doesn't look super healthy.
He also doesn't have Lurking in the Waters, which is one of the big steal potentials you have with the Sobek, and this is going to be straight into a Fire Giant. Hype Unit, they haven't got a kill in about 10 minutes, but they finally got a kill onto an objective. They got the steal out, which was, you know, it stops the push a bit, but they sacrificed far too much in getting that. GuyJ's over here as well. He's just going to sacrifice himself, looking for potential steal, but being blocked out by Geno. The wall from Mask disengages his own team. molluskk too low on this right-hand side as Haddix zones him out as well. It's been perfect play yet again from Baskin and the boys, and Hype Unit, they looked incredibly strong on Thursday. Baskin and the boys, they had some struggles. This has just been completely the opposite story.
Yeah, and it just shows that Baskin and the boys took what they learned from yesterday, kind of re-engaged their mind and said, we can do better. And it's showing right now that they can do better. Hype Unit being the lowest seed, knocked off the #1 seed yesterday. So Baskin and the boys have a lot to live up to, because Hype Unit took that one pretty easily, but Baskin and the boys are taking this one pretty easily. Just keeps on collapsing onto these counter, I guess, engages that you would say. Baskin and the boys not necessarily playing aggressive, but letting Hype Unit play into their hand.
Yeah, but I think that's the way you kind of have to play this composition. Your biggest engage tool would be Geno blinking in with that Earthen Fury, doesn't bring out CC, or Mass dunking in with that Anvil of Dawn. A bit telegraphed at times, especially if it's warded out. Not the biggest AoE in the world. Meanwhile, have a look at the side of Hype Unit, their engage potential. Blink, Sobek, plug. Pretty easy to hit. Blink, Fear No Evil, almost instant engage, not very easily telegraphed unless you see exactly where Hombats is just before he blinks in. You know, they have the better engage tools over on Hype Unit, so Baskin and the boys playing it a bit defensively. I don't mind that, as Haddix is forced into using his beads, but at the cost of 2 ultimates of Hype Unit. That is a huge win.
Yeah, 2 ultimates expended just for Haddix's beads is, as you said, a big win. Is not only do they get the tier 1 in the left, but they get the tier 2 in the left, and now it seems like their focus is going to be on this Phoenix on the left-hand side. They do have the Fire Giant, so it is definitely a potential play for them, as Meerkat is going to start that. Molluskk does blink in. It's going to get Sictum crushed and stunned. Meerkat is looking, Molluskk is looking a little weak, but Thor picking up the kill. Haddix picking up Molluskk. This Phoenix almost looks completely free. His Layers and GuyJ trying to just disengage. Wolves helping him out a little bit. And the left-hand side Phoenix falls, and this it's just Baskin and the boys being Baskin and the boys.
Yeah, and now they're going to go for this mid lane tier 2, and with 2 people still down on the side of Hype Unit, they're still in the 3 versus 5. They can even go for this mid Phoenix, take down 2 birds for 1 push. And looks like that's exactly what they're going to do. Layerssss nowhere to be seen in this fight. His Fear No Evil's going to come up soon, but not at the expense of Wolves, who's already bit the dust. And with just 2 squishies on the front side, GuyJ nearly follows suit.
As the mid-Phoenix falls, that I'm a Monster almost killing 2, and they got the mid-Phoenix. Now their focus is going to be solely onto this right lane, as spawn timers are now winding down to 0. Except for Wolves, who just got blown up by Baskin in the I'm a Monster. This just shows, I think, a difference in communication between these 2 teams. Baskin and the boys consistently on the same page, and I can't say that Hype Unit is always on that same page.
Which is surprising given the members of Hype Unit. They played together for a long time. Don't forget, these are console world champions that they have on their side of Wolves, Layerssss, and oBoronic. Then they have molluskk and GuyJ. I can't speak for GuyJ too much, considering he is a bit new into the scene, but molluskk, he's been a standout member for most of the teams that he's played upon. He's been good at communication, he's been a leader, which is exactly what you kind of want in a support role. Maybe that's where the issue has come down, is the fact that molluskk and the rest of the members of Hype Unit just haven't fully fleshed out their differences in how they want to play the game, and it's been exploited here by Baskin and the boys, that they just managed to worm their way out of these scuffed engages from Hype Unit.
Yeah, the devs did talk about that molluskk used to play these aggressive junglers, and that if he was too aggressive, he would pay dearly for it. It looks like he has been paying a little bit dearly for it. He has been a part of all 3 kills, but he has 6 deaths to his name, and he is 4 levels down from his counterpart. I'm not sure if maybe we just kind of say, molluskk, take a step back, let the game come to you a little bit, and just see if we can get Wolves to engage. Like, what would be Hype Unit's scapegoat for this?
I think the early game from Hype Unit was fine. I think the draft is fine coming out from Hype Unit, just the way that they played it in the mid-game was the issue. And that doesn't come down to molluskk, that doesn't come down to one individual player, that comes down to the team itself. And it comes back down to their engages onto Baskin, which we're bringing up yet again. It's just been, like we said, scuffed. It's been not perfect. It's been miscommunicated, is what I want to say, because they find the target correctly. They manage to get onto Baskin in situations where he's isolated correctly, but the way that they chain their CC, the way that they chain their abilities, just wasn't what you would expect from members of Hype Unit.
And I do have to point out that NotGeno has been playing very well as the Fire Giant has started. molluskk is in the lurking in the waters as Hype Unit steal the Fire Giant! Baskin and Mast are up in the air. The I'm a Monster is going to come down. It seems to not hit too many. molluskk looking a little bit weak as the Sikkim Crush will land and Baskin gets a double kill on oBoronic and molluskk. Even though Hype Unit stole the Fire Giant, they're on the back foot. This right Phoenix is going to be the next target because NotGeno has some healing with that Monolith. GuyJ gonna try to defend this right, but no, they're going to ignore the right lane. Wolves is now stunned out. He's gonna go Lord in the Afterlife. A perfect Aegis from Baskin to save that damage from him. Layers now pushed out. Wolves trying to get away, but look at that. GuyJ in the back is able to pick up Mast. Wolves trying to just dodge every ability he can as the Titan is now under attack. But Layers gonna be able to successfully defend it. I think that Meerkat and Baskin are trying to look for something. NotGeno looking a little weak, but Haddix is over there too. Wolves is able to back and heal up, and now molluskk has spawned. The disengage trying to come out for Baskin and the boys. They seem to overstay their welcome. Meerkat will fall to MORWolves. NotGeno being able to get alive with just little bits of health.
A bit too ambitious on that end call there from Baskin and the boys, and that's given Hype Unit a window back into this game. molluskk keeping up the chase over here on the jungle side. It's going to be lurking in the waters just to keep as much pressure on them as possible, forcing the rest of Baskin and the boys away. But look what's happened on the left-hand side. The Phoenix has respawned. Look what's going to happen in mid lane in a second. The Phoenix has respawned. This is the point of the game where Hype Unit can say, okay, we're back in this game now. So we're going to go back and see exactly what happened at that Fire Giant fight. As you can see, it looks like it's well set up here for Baskin to secure it with that crush. But out comes the Fear No Evil. The very first tick of Fear No Evil manages to get that objective. Lurking in the Waters was there just to try and secure as well. But that's just a bit unfortunate there for Baskin and the boys, I think. You know, one tiny bit of damage out from Fear No Evil, and they lose the Fire Giant, but they still could have ended, I feel. They managed to get a couple kills, but it was just too ambitious on that call.
Yeah, it seems a little bit aggressive, and like we said, they overstayed their welcome. But Hype Unit stealing that Fire Giant with that Fear No Evil tick, as you were mentioning, 3 members still have it. There was a point in the game where we saw the gold difference, and it was 12,000. That gold difference now, 7,000. This game just turned on its head. I wouldn't say completely. I would say more it's laying down, trying to get up, but it's not quite where Hype Unit want it to be, but they're definitely clawing their way back into this.
Yeah, this is the Fire Giant that you take to reset the game, to make sure that, you know, you're trying to get back into parity. You're still waiting on molluskk to gain 4 levels. He still hasn't sold his Blessing, neither has oBoronic. We'll have to look inside of Baskin and the boys. They still have boots on all 5 members, but they're getting to the point now where they can sell the boots for the speed potion and get a 6th item. So you're still a tiny bit behind in build if you're Hype Unit, and the experience is still something you need for molluskk to catch up on. So just getting this Fire Giant, getting the disparity back to somewhat even, is exactly what you need, as Haddix could be the first one on the chopping block for this first engagement underneath this mid-tier 1.
Well, Baskin is up, as well as Mast. Mast just off the mark. I'm a Monster does land onto molluskk. Mast able to pick up oBoronic. The engagement now into the backline, but Wolves is a little bit out of position as they're going to pick up a kill, but and they defend the tier 1 tower.
Yeah, it's a very successful defense, and you wouldn't expect that 30 minutes into the game that a tier 1 tower in mid lane would be standing. And that's just exactly what's happened, but with oBoronic dead, without the potential for Discordia's zoning abilities, Hype Unit are under a bit more pressure here to defend this Phoenix. They have to make sure their engage is on the correct target. And the correct target for Baskin and the boys looks like it's Layerssss, as he's poked down to half health.
Yeah, Layerssss didn't have that Magi's Blessing available to him or his beads, so he took a little bit of that poke, but NotGeno not looking so great either himself. He's trying to stay in the health, but the Lord of the Afterlife's coming out. The big Fear No Evil from Layerssss. NotGeno looking good as Meerkat dropping the Suns to zone out Layerssss. NotGeno on nuggets of health, but Wolves picking up Mast. Baskin picking up GuyJ, and he is now divine. molluskk stopping Baskin with just a pluck as MORWolves getting slowed by every ability, and here he goes in the air for Camelot. for Avalon, or I should say for Baskin, but oBoronic has spawned. Meerkat picks up oBoronic. Baskin might actually lose his life. He's able to get away. More nuggets for Baskin. The crush just off the mark, but Meerkat picking up a double kill. Only Layerssss is left. Baskin not looking so healthy. Haddix is here along with Meerkat. If they can get Layerssss, this could spell the end of the game, but Haddix trying to just see if he can maybe get Layerssss to come out. Waiting on minions is Baskin and the boys, and there's the stun. Layerssss getting hit. Layerssss having to jump back into the fountain as the Titan is now under attack. Crush coming out. The Titan is at half. There's not much. The Fear No Evil's coming out. Baskin looking a little weak, but so is the Titan. Layerssss is going to go up in the air. Meerkat lands on Layerssss, and that will be the end. Baskin and the boys picking up the first game.
And Haddix did his job there perfectly, just zone out the combats completely, and there was nothing that Layerssss could do to defend that Titan. Even though he had Fear No Evil up, he just couldn't get onto the Scylla, who was his primary target yet again. But just ignoring Meerkat allowed all this damage to come out onto the Titan, allowed the game to end there, essentially. But that just comes down to a great zone potential, and, you know, a fair play to Baskin and the boys. They played that game well, and they were good money for their win.
Yeah, Baskin and the boys played that well, and I think it came down for me 2 players. It was Baskin and NotGeno. I feel like NotGeno set up a lot of kills for Baskin, and Baskin was just able to continue to follow up and slip away from so many engages that Hype Unit trying to get into. Hype Unit now have to reset before they go into Game 2. If you're Hype Unit, what do you even do?
Like I said in the cast, it wasn't the draft. But I think it just comes down to how they play out the draft, and how they play out the draft just comes down to who they engage on and how they communicate those targets. And the target communication was good. It's the CC communication that needs work.
Yeah, the team communication wasn't quite there for Hype Unit, and I think that's something that they can easily fix. But we are going to throw it over to our desk to get their analysis. Desk, what do you got for us?
Well, Fuzzy, I opened the day welcoming everyone to the Smite Challenger Circuit when I probably should have been all welcoming them to the Baskin show. That's what we saw in game number 1. Baskin on that Scylla, absolutely dominant. Aggro joined here by Lermy on the desk. And Lermy, I mean, I think that Fuzzy brings up a good point. Yes, Gino was there setting up, but a lot of that was just Baskin getting really, really far ahead. And even though some of the fights were close towards the end, Hype Unit just never had an answer for the Scylla.
It's kind of weird to be seeing this kind of play from Hype Unit, because when we saw them play on Thursday, they were so impressive with how calculated every single play seemed to be. And of course, we're seeing Layerssss in a more traditional jungle pick this time on the Hunban, so unfortunately he did end up going 0-5. So when it comes down to it, I just don't know if they had a game plan for this one, because maybe they were practicing a lot of that more weird stuff.
I don't know. I mean, they went with a pretty standard composition. I mean, molluskk got off to a pretty good start over there in the duo lane. Gino gets hit by the first 4 or 5 plucks that he throws out when he starts pluck at level 1. Think that caught Gino off guard a little bit. And then it all kind of falls apart pretty quickly after that. Haddix is pretty much unstoppable in that short lane. Felt like there was just nowhere for Hype Unit to go to get that pressure back once they lost it in the duo lane.
I see what you're saying, and especially when it comes to the lead that they started to generate towards the mid-game. I mean, Baskin was just unstoppable. We've seen a lot of Scylla being played recently, but honestly, Baskin has been the most impressive yet, especially with the accuracy coming from these I'm a Monsters. You can see in this replay here, he just does not seem to miss, and between that and just the overall lead that he was getting, he was able to push that further and further. And like you said, Hype Unit just did not know how to respond.
I think when the average player thinks about Scylla, this is the Scylla that they feel like they're playing against all the time. The one that's landing everything, is super far ahead, and just does a million damage to you all the time. You never think about the Scylla that's a little bit behind because she doesn't have great wave clear and just isn't doing as much damage as she needs to be doing, or is inaccurate with those I'm a Monsters. None of that the case here for Baskin in game number 1. And now I think this puts Hype Unit in an odd position, because do you really have to ban Scylla? That's not a god that you can really afford to ban in the first phase.
That's a good point to bring up. I think that perhaps it wasn't necessarily that Scylla was the problem, more so that Baskin was the problem. And so when they go into the next game, I really want to see them draft something that's going to be able to pick off Baskin, because that's exactly what happened to them. oBoronic seemed to die very early in a lot of these fights. So I want to see them maybe draft a more defensive support to either protect him or something super aggressive so they can really focus out Baskin through this next game.
Maybe that Thor from Ass can't go to his hands again. We'll see what Hype Unit wants to do as we're ready for game number 2's picks and bans. Felt like there was a little bit of a split difference in the bans early on here for Hype Unit. They were sprinkling bans all over the place a little bit for Baskin, a little bit for Meerkat with that GuyJ. I mean, they got ahead in duo by killing Geno early on, and GuyJ had a small lead over Meerkat, but it just never really materialized into something that Hype Unit could really hold on to.
I'm hoping that they might show some more focus onto getting Layers something less traditional, because I feel like I really liked a lot of his play on the Ares when we saw that, and even the set. So I think if they pull out something that Baskin and the boys aren't prepared for, they might at least have that element of surprise where they just don't know the kind of things that Layers is necessarily capable of doing. Because honestly, when's the last time we saw set being meta? When's the last time we saw Ares even in general, much less in the jungle?
It's a good point, and something that maybe you can throw a different look at them and they won't be quite as prepared for it. So far, the bans are exactly the same. Ullr, Horus, Yorm for Baskin and the boys, and you've got Merlin, GuyJ, and it was Hell in this slot in game number 1, which it will not be this time around. It will be the Thor taking that away from Mask, which I think is a pretty wise decision here by Hype Unit. We'll see if B&B want to go with the Hell to kind of throw one back at Hype Unit after they banned it last game, but that's not a pick I think we've seen a whole lot of from B&B, and indeed it will not be their first pick. Instead, Meerkat gets a little bit of safety out of the Jing Wei.
I think that's a fine pickup for them. I think they really want to see kind of what Hype is planning to do. That's a very safe pick. It can really go... well, of course it's going to the ADC, but it's very, very safe. It can kind of do anything that you need it to do, not really revealing your hand at that point. Same kind of thing with Camazotz. That character being let through can either go into the jungle or the solo lane, but with this Sobek pickup, that might even reveal even more. I don't necessarily want to see molluskk on this character this time, so I'm really hoping that one goes to Wolves, but at the same time, I don't think molluskk necessarily had a bad performance on it. I just wish that he was playing a little bit more defensively.
Well, King Arthur again for Haddix, and we saw Camazotz jungle yesterday in the SPL. Radiance put that in the jungle instead of in Benji's hands. They lost that game. Then they put Camazotz back in the solo lane, and they won pretty easily. So, I don't know. I think there is some correlation there. No reason to switch it up here for Baskin. He goes right back to that Scylla, just as Haddix has gone back to the King Arthur. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Scylla's one of the few characters that feels like at times she could actually get away from Camazotz, so I like that. And we'll see a bit of a reversal in the roles in the duo lane as GuyJ now piloting the Ho Yi and Meerkat on the Jing Wei.
I'm not so worried about this dual lane matchup. I think that either way, they're probably just going to be sitting in that lane for 20 minutes farming up, and they show up to the fight and do the same thing that all late game ADCs do. So beyond that, I'm glad to see that this Terra is getting banned away, because she really was able to help set the Scylla up a ton, and especially combined with Mask's Thor, they were able to pop that Earth and Fury fairly quickly. So I'm glad to see that there's a little bit of focus onto Geno, because he certainly showed his stuff that last game, but on the other hand, they're taking away Oboronic's Discordia, and I'm kind of surprised by that, because Oboronic did not have the best game last time, so maybe they're trying to force him onto something more, something that he might not even be comfortable with at all, but even still, Raijin is still available, so that might be the play, either for Baskin to ban or for Hype to pick up.
Yeah, you called it, Lermy. It is a Raijin ban there for B&B, and now you've got a situation where Oboronic has to go a little bit deeper into the God pool. I like the Discordia ban exclusively for the passive that Camazotz would have been getting, but hello, we've got an Aphrodite sighting in the SEC playoffs. This is a pick that can be very strong, and this makes me think maybe it is Camazotz jungle, because you want this Afro linked to a diver that's going to do a lot of damage and then would become impossible to kill. But I say it a decent amount when we see pretty heavy healing compositions. I don't know how much I like Camazotz and Aphrodite on the same team, just because the anti-heal that B&B are going to buy now anyways, no matter what, now becomes doubly effective because it's shutting down two of your characters and not just one.
That's true, but of course, one thing to mention here is that Scylla might not be the best at applying that anti-heal to a lot of characters at the same time. Of course, that crush is a big circle, but for the most part, if you're aiming it, you're probably going to be throwing it at 1 or 2 people, so as long as that Afro is positioning pretty far back, we might actually be seeing her survive through that. But look at this hover, the Thanatos, so that just means that, with that lock-in, that confirms that we've got 2 divers, but the Camazotz is very likely going to be going into that solo lane. And I like this mix-up from Hype Unit, a very interesting draft. And I'm super excited to see how this one goes.
Yeah, a lot of dive, but not a lot of peel, which is what you were asking for a little bit more of here. Do you think they've got the tools to stop Baskin Scylla this time?
I think they're trying to shut him down as soon as possible. That Thanatos is an incredibly strong early game god, and one of the people that have been really playing that is Sam for soccer, so I'm hoping that Layers will channel Sam in this match.
Baskin and the boys looking for the 2-game sweep over Hype Unit and to make their way into the finals. Let's see if they can do it.
Thank you, Desk, for that wonderful analysis. Fuzzy is still here with Alpha, and Baskin got Scylla again. I mean, that's not something you want to see from Hype Unit. He's going to just be able to run the game, but he doesn't have, I would say, nearly as much setup as he did the last game.
You say he's got Scylla again, but I'm having a look at Hype Unit's draft, and I'm saying, well, our early game went extremely well. What if we doubled down on it times 10? And just pick as many early game gods as we can possibly fit into our team. They have the Sobek again, which is good early game aggression. I think he doesn't start Pluck this time, which is a welcome change, just to try and get his team a bit more, confirmable pressure. But then in the jungle, you have Thanatos, linked to an Aphrodite. I do not expect anything other than Layerssss holding W key and possibly even putting it down with some tape.
Yeah, Layerssss just pressing that W key once he hits that level 5 mark. The skull on the back of a character when you're close to that execute range is something that I am always terrified of, and that's something that that Baskin and the boys might have to be a little bit scared of as well, just because, as you said, they're totally doubling down on this early game. But GuyJ looking like he might be in a little bit of a trouble, but Geno gonna just stop that pressure from happening as GuyJ gets the full pressure.
Yeah, that pressure came about because Baskin gets pressure in the mid lane, invades onto those mid harpies, and they want to rotate to make sure he's not invading onto the rep buff instead. So molluskk forced out of lane already, means GuyJ is isolated by himself, and therefore Geno and Meerkat can push up and get themselves pressure. And it was just from a free invade from Baskin, because he's safe with that Sentinel at level 2, as meanwhile he's joining it with Mask now that he's level 3. Oboronic and Layerssss also forming that duo. Mid-camp's still been untouched on this right-hand side, and I imagine they're going to go the way of Hype Unit here, as Baskin and the boys settle for the back camps.
Yeah, and Baskin and the boys seem to be farming much more efficiently than they did in that last game. Hype Unit was ahead in gold, and right now Baskin and the boys seem to be ahead in gold, and I wouldn't imagine that's going to... I imagine that's going to change very quickly into Hype Unit's favor just because of the early pressure that they're going to be getting from this Thanatos and from Camazotz, as Haddix is just doing Haddix things onto Camazotz, but Camazotz is doing Camazotz things to King Arthur, something that is a known counter for King Arthur.
Yeah, and what a shot there from Wolves, hitting those Vampire Bats when Haddix was just going to dash away with the basic attack. And even though Camazotz has lost a bit of his sustain, a bit of his damage from that Screech, from that physical power buff as well, he's still really difficult to deal with as a King Arthur, just because of the amount of pressure he brings out, the amount of early game fight. King Arthur doesn't want to fight as much until he gets that Glad Shield online, and Camazotz, he ain't going to let that happen. But the blue buff invade looking like it might be on the cards here as Layerssss makes his rotation. Bit too late as Master's already secured it.
Yeah, Mast is just on top of everything with this Nike, and this Nike pick seems to be a little bit interesting because it does look like that Baskin and the boys are playing for the late game, so the game plan for them seems to be, hey, let's not give them too many kills in the early game because we have a Nike that makes us go zoom zoom.
And they also have the Scylla for the late game, they have the Jing for the late game, they have not the greatest support in the late game, and that could be a window for Hype Unit to exploit if they do find themselves in a late game fight. But that they... Yes, you can stop the Assassins doing what they want to do in the backline, but Wolves is going to be in the sky, Layerssss is going to be in the sky, and if needs be, they can use that Aphrodite Undying Love to immune that silence and just allow themselves to get the kill and get the reset. molluskk going aggressive onto Meerkat here as GuyJ jumps in as well. The pluck should come out any second just to try and force these beads, but, patient play here from... What? Hello? That bounce!
that was an incredible bounce from GuyJ, and just shows that how good Hou-Yi is if he's able to hit the triple bounces off of the tower. So great shot from GuyJ, having to make Jingwei back, but because of Jingwei's passage, she's going to be able to get back into lane pretty quickly. So just a little bit of pressure to Hype Unit, but not enough really to, I think, that warrant a full-on we got the win. But speaking of we got the win, their gold lead is slowly getting more and more. This just shows that Baskin and the boys are playing a slow bleed game that seems to be playing in their favor.
I mean, it looks like it's going to be stabilizing around the 600 gold mark for the time being, you know, about 700 experience as well, which is not too bad of a situation to be in. But if you're Hype Unit and you have this draft, you want to be the one that's ahead by about 1,000, maybe even 2,000 at this stage of the game. You want to have a couple of kills on the board. You want to make sure that this Thanatos is ahead at this point in the game. But it looks like it's the same game plan that they had in Game 1. Get GuyJ a bit comfortable, get him a bit further ahead of Meerkat, just let him solo farm, just so you can focus on the rest of the map. That's exactly what's happening again, but they're just not in time for these blue buff invades.
Yeah, the blue buff invades just a little bit off the mark, as Meerkat is going to have to go away from the falling suns as GuyJ able to get that ultimate. So I wouldn't be surprised if I see, you know, Thanatos just making sure that he gets over to Meerkat, making sure that, you know, the ult's down, so that's one of the big escapes. But look at this rotation coming out from Baskin. Realizing that he has no mana, the beads might be still available for him as the crush comes out. There are the beads to stop the slow. The I'm a Monster comes out, and Baskin gets the first blow with the I'm a Monster. Baskin, come on, man. You don't have to do it to him that bad.
He has a family. He's just a lonely boy trying to farm. He's trying to find his way in life, and you come and murder him. Not only do they get the kill, they also force his beats, which means he is a sitting duck for the next 2 minutes. Granted, it is a Nike in the jungle, and what's Nike going to do? Slow you to death? I mean, that's what, you know, Osiris does, not Nike. But it's still just going to be a lot of damage coming out from Mast on this Nike. Geno could be the target here for Layerssss and oBoronic, but I don't like the follow-up coming out from the Thanatos. Yes, it's a good stun from Aphrodite with the kiss, and then you have the scythe coming out from Thanatos, but where's the big AoE damage coming from? Where's the huge follow-up? As Layerssss finds himself in a heap of trouble, forced out that undying love, as Mast is in the back.
Yeah, Mast is in the back, and oBoronic has no mana. The beats coming out, the rend coming out for oBoronic is just missing it, but Mast will pick up oBoronic on the back end. This is just, again, all about communication. It seemed like Layerssss was wanting to go in and try to get something to happen, but Baskin and the boys recognizing that they can keep the pressure going if they counter-engage. Speaking of keeping the pressure going, Baskin wants to go in, forced the beads out as Mast kicks up. Layer is in his own jungle. And look at that molluskk ulting and lurking in the waters, wasted. And now this is a free speed buff for Baskin. And I think that's just the game, right? If you get the enemy jungler speed buff at 6 minutes in the game, you just win, right?
Against this composition, it's a hard yes from me. This is pretty much game over at this point, I feel, for Hype Unit. They have to get a fight where Baskin and the boys just mess up at this point, because you have a look at Thanatos, he's 2 levels down. Aphrodite, a level down. molluskk, a level down. Wolves is being pushed under tower in a matchup he should really be winning. And GuyJ doesn't seem to be able to get a solo kill here onto Meerkat. In fact, Meerkat could be able to turn this one around with the fact that the Suns are now down. It's just going from bad to worse here from Hype Unit, and I have to say, I do agree with Aggro on the desk from this. Not for the same reasons, though. The Aphrodite just wasn't the pick for me. Not because of the amount of anti-healing they're going to get, but that is also a big reason. But it's also the fact that there's not that great of a follow-up. Yes, you do have to back off, but you want something early game that chunks. You want something like a Raijin. You want something like a Merlin to follow up from this Thanatos, not an Aphrodite.
Yeah, and those gods were unfortunately banned for them, along with oBoronic's Discordia, so I'm a little bit surprised that we didn't see necessarily the Hell pick maybe come out, or something like a Kukulkan. I know he's seen the nerf bug a lot, but something, like you said, just needs to be a little bit more pressure to help out with this follow-up, and Hype Unit just not being able to follow up with anything. They're just playing on the back foot. I think they just need to slow down the game a little bit and let it come to them, because I believe if that happens, Baskin and the boys might be able to just collapse onto a trap like they were able to do in that first game.
Yeah, but I'm having a look at Hype Unit's team comp, and you really have a look at the Aphrodite and the Hou-Yi as your answers in the late game. Maybe Thanatos, if Layerssss is going to build it to full damage, he can still get that nice burst off. He's going to get caught out here, forced into the ult early on. Gonna straight back down to Baskin. This is an aggressive play. I like what they're doing here. They finally killed Baskin for the first time in 2 games, but at what cost this is going to be as Haddix has found his way around the back. oBoronic forced onto the Undying Love. Out comes the Lurking in the Waters as well, and down goes oBoronic with the first kill of Excalibur's Wrath. Wolves finally making a late rotation just to try and save a support.
As the engagement still happens, as Wolves trying to do something, as Haddix gets a double kill. Bat out of hell's used for Wolves just to try to get away. And now, Baskin and the boys are going to be able to get a free speed buff again. This right-hand side jungle, it's theirs. It belongs to Baskin and the boys, and they do elect to disengage from that speed buff, recognizing that Thanatos is back up. And I don't know if you want to run into a level 8 Thanatos, but you are 2 levels ahead of him, Mask. You could look to engage a little bit more.
I think it's just the fact that Mask didn't have his ultimate available. Layerssss is still quite dangerous on this Thanatos, even though he is 2 levels behind. That site is going to chunk, especially with that Crusher being finished off for Layerssss. I like the build pass that they're going for here. The cooldown reduction rush from oBoronic means it's going to be as effective as possible. I'd like to maybe have seen a Staff of Mirrodin as one of his options for cooldown, just because it synergizes so well with how Aphrodite wants to play these fights. I do want to see a bit more fighting coming out here from the mid lane, but with rotations from Wolves coming first, because right now Haddix is having his way with this lane. Like I said, it's not something you would expect in this matchup.
As Baskin picks up Layerssss, he is going to go into the I'm a Monster and just miss oBoronic. That's more of a, I like to call those zoning ultimates, just to make sure that if he did decide to do the little back step, that he was going to get hit pretty hard. It just seems that Baskin and the boys have so much control over this map in general. Meerkat out-pressuring GuyJ. NotGeno out-pressuring molluskk. Mask out-pressuring Layerssss because Layerssss keeps dying. He is 0-3, 10 minutes in the game, and a bat out of hell is used for Wolves. He's going to collapse in onto Haddix, but he's going to be able to find the safety of the tower. It just seems like they're getting bullied from all different sides.
So the game plan needs to change then from Hype Unit if they're getting bullied on left, right, and center. Just try and pick one lane. Just one lane that you want to maybe get ahead. It's not worked out in the mid lane. You're not going to get a kill onto Haddix at this point in the game with the 2 assassins that you drafted. It's just not going to happen. So that lane's also a bit of a write-off. That just leaves the left-hand side with Meerkat. I want to see more sentry wards coming out from Hype Units on this left-hand side. I want them to look to just pressure Meerkat at this point. Shift focus away from Baskin, make him rotate to extend his lead, make him work to extend the lead rather than just gift into it on a silver platter, and maybe, just maybe, they can make this composition work.
Yeah, that seemed to be the focus last time, was just see if we can get something happen on the left-hand side of the map. Meerkat and GuyJ both seem to be focuses, and GuyJ, like we said earlier, if you can run through the game with GuyJ, you can kind of run through it, but Layerssss getting collapsed on by Haddix, and Baskin, I'm a monster. Just talk about the communication we were just discussing. Baskin's getting a double kill. That was a 4-man rotation, again in Hype Unit's own jungle. Do they just go for this Pyromancer, or do they just go back to farming because, hey, we're ahead, why not just keep the pressure in all the lanes?
They can get whatever they want at this point. It's only a 5k gold lead, but it feels like a lot more. The only lane which has potential to go south of them at this point is this dual lane. But Meerkat's on Jing. You're not going to be able to kill Jing that easily. You need to gank and gank repeatedly just to force out all the safety and then get the kill. Pyromancer does go the way. Meerkat forced out into the beams. This should be the call. I want to see Layerssss over here and hounding out Meerkat for the next minute if they are to get anything going down.
Well, Baskin and the boys did pick up that Pyromancer. Meerkat did back and was able to get away, so Gold Fury is the call from Hype Unit. But again, Meerkat just going to be able to fly on over pretty quickly. GuyJ's ult is down. Baskin is around just to make sure they don't get this for free, along with NotGeno. The Bird's coming out to see if they can secure this as Layerssss trying to get something started, as GuyJ looking like he's going to try to disengage from it. Look at this, molluskk going towards back to the Gold Fury, leaving his team alone. Mask is in a bad position. Geno's in a bad position, but guess who's even in a worse position? GuyJ, who falls as Baskin and the boys pick up a free Gold Fury.
And Haddix doesn't have to worry about any magical damage in this game right now because it's on the Aphrodite who's just going to be looking to heal up rather than looking to poke out people like, you know, a Discordia would have done in the last game. He is unstoppable at this point, and you can just see exactly how excruciatingly difficult it is to take down this King Arthur. He was fighting for a good solid minute And he's above half health still, thanks to that Glad Shield and that Breastplate of Valor, giving himself some extra defense, some extra cooldown. Haddix is at the point where he is a tank by himself. He doesn't need the rest of his team to help him out, but the rest of his team could just go ahead and get these objectives. And the next objective looks to be Layerssss. He's going to immune the slow thanks to that Scent of Death, but the Ren damage is going to be too much for him. Mast picks up yet another kill. 11 and 1. 6,000 gold, pushing on to 7,000 gold in the lead. I'm calling this one right now. Baskin and the boys have won this 2-0, except if they throw massively.
Well, and we saw that they were running the game one previously. They were running the whole thing through that mid-game and late game, but they had that one moment where the Fire Giant was stolen from Hype Unit and they were able to successfully defend. If Hype Unit can do something like that, maybe they have a little bit of life, but I'm right there with you. This just screams that maybe this wasn't the draft for Hype Unit. The Layerssss pick, he's now 0-5. Baskin and the boys just seem to be, hey, we're just going to collapse on this Thanatos so that that early game that's supposed to be there just doesn't exist.
And they're also making sure that the mid-game from Aphrodite doesn't exist as well. Aphrodite does struggle a tiny bit in the early laning phase, and they take a full advantage of it. And that started with Baskin at level 1, getting an invade onto those mid-harpies, sorry. And just from there, it snowballed consistently into a lead for Baskin and the boys, all because of Hype Unit's response to it. They decided to try and rotate to make sure he wasn't invading on the rep buff by himself. But that is a Scylla at level 2. He will not be invading the red buff by himself, because that means he has to get his Sikkim, means he forgoes Sentinel, meaning he basically suicides to get the red buff himself. That is not a play that any mid laner should be doing unless they know for a fact that they're going to get out without that Sentinel. And in this sort of competition, that is not going to happen. So you know he's not invading on that red buff. And then the call from Hype Unit to try and defend the red buff anyway just screams like they weren't prepared for the pressure that Baskin was going to bring right out the gates, and it looks like they aren't prepared for it still.
The key words that came to my mind when you were talking is not prepared for Baskin. And I think no one is really prepared for Baskin, but we also can't get away from Mast either. He's playing this Nike jungle. Haddix is playing this King Arthur solo really well. He's just going to do King Arthur things for Camelot for Avalon and just half-health Layers, even when Layerssss hit that death sight on the way down. So this just screams that Baskin and the boys have this game in their hand, and they're going to be able to get this mid-tier 1 pretty easily. I don't think oBoronic or molluskk want to even think about engaging onto this.
I think Baskin and the boys, they came in with a game plan. Hype Unit also came in with a game plan, but Baskin and the boys have tailored their game plan to perfection to deal with what Hype Unit want to do. Baskin is going to be the choice of target here for Hype Unit. They're investing a lot onto him, but the shell comes out, as does the Armor Monster, as does pretty much everything else. And you know who dies at the end of it? Layerssss, not Baskin.
Baskin just did some squirrely maneuvers just to get out of all of those ultimates, bad out of hell, but the Suns do come out as Mask is going to go ahead and dive in. Haddix taking the tower as Wolves is going to be able to pick up Haddix, taking a little bit too much damage from that tower, and Camazotz doing some more damage, so they're going to have to disengage from this tier 2, and this is what I was talking about. It seems like the Baskin and the boys can sometimes overstay their welcome, and that's where Hype Unit can be able to do that. Now, they are down 8,000 gold at 17 minutes in the game. I feel like that's a hard climb to come back to, but it's not impossible for this team of Hype Unit.
I mean, they have to stall the game out for another 15 minutes, or they need to make sure that they win a couple fights, which Baskin and the boys have to throw to them. And, you know, that last fight underneath that tier 2 tower, you said it yourself, they have overextended a bit, and that's what Haddix did. He took too much damage from a damage source that he wasn't expecting, and that's coming out from the magical damages. I mean, he only just has his pestilence online now. In that previous fight, no magical defense whatsoever. Takes a lot of damage from those lovebirds thanks to the extra penetration coming out from oBoronic now that he's finished up that Divine Ruin, as well as the damage coming out from the Sobek. It's not negligible that Lurking in the Waters can pack a serious punch, even with the build that molluskk has gone for. So he just took too much damage than he was expecting. I don't think that's going to happen again, so Hype Unit need to find another way to win these fights. They have to play these fights defensively. And when you have a Thanatos, when you have a Camazotz, when you have a Sobek, playing the fights defensively is not what you want to do.
Yeah, they're playing this very defensively as they're trying to get into this Oni Fury. molluskk is going to go lurking into the waters to try to disengage as the pillars are dropped. Look who's up in the air. Layerssss is up. He's going to land onto Meerkat, but Meerkat deletes Layerssss along with Baskin. Look at this. Mast is coming in with a huge Nike ultimate as Bat Out of Hell expended. Try to get molluskk and Wolves out of there, and that's a free Oni Fury for Baskin and the boys. And they could look to continue to aggress onto this. It looks like maybe the left-hand side, but they just have full pressure on every side of the map that they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to go for this tier 2 tower on the left-hand side, just push that lead even more and push it over that 10,000 gold tipping point where it becomes impossible to win fights if you're behind. And the 10,000 gold mark is such, it's a backbreaker here for the Hype unit. And at this point, I honestly think they should be discussing what they're going to be doing in that lower bracket. What went wrong for them in this game? What can they help change? Because after this game's over, with Baskin and the boys winning it, which they should do in the next 6 or 7 minutes, Hype unit then have to face another best of 3. And they have to try and win that to have the chance to put it right against Baskin and the boys in the grand final tomorrow.
Well, you said 6 or 7 minutes. I'm going to hold you to that. So at the 25-minute mark, if the game's not over, I'm going to blame you for it. But I think you're absolutely right. This is a let's reset, let's look up for the next game for Hype unit. Baskin and the boys just have this. And I said it yesterday and I'll say it again today. Baskin and the boys is one of those teams that even though they were the number 2 seed, I think they're the contentious winners for North America. I think that really only one team might be able to give them a little bit of trouble, and that was Locked and Goated that gave them a little bit of trouble, but again, Blugie and the Woogies are great. Hype unit beat Blugie and the Woogies, so this team should have given them a little bit of trouble, but it just seems like they're running through tissue paper, Baskin and the boys.
Yeah, the game plan from Hype unit was counted out completely here by Baskin and the boys, and it just comes down to their ability to play this matchup a bit more defensively than the Hype unit were expecting. The early game aggression just wasn't able to take off at all because of how Baskin and the boys played it, and they're going to get the Fire Giant for free. Wolves forced up into that Bat Out of Hell. They're just going to continue this chase. Looks like they're going to give it up, though. Instead, look to push down some objectives, because GuyJ is doing the exact same thing on this left-hand side. I'm not sure if I like the backs here. Just send one person back and have the rest of them push on this right-hand side. Force Hype unit to be the ones to back.
Well, Hype unit didn't necessarily back, but they did get 2 towers out of it. They got the mid-tier 1 and the left-hand side tier 1 tower. So a trade for Fire Giant. I take the Fire Giant over those 2 towers because we've discussed this before. Tier 1 towers at 20 minutes in the game, not necessarily the most important ones. You want to get Tier 2 towers, and I think that was GuyJ's ultimate plan, just to make sure that he can get to that Tier 2 tower, but I don't know. I think if you're Hype unit, you have to collectively go in as a 5-man or just say, we're not going to worry about defending the Tier 2 towers and defend the Phoenixes. Is it something that they should have just completely disengaged from that Fire Giant and just given it up altogether, or was it okay for them to maybe dabble in trying to get it back?
I think maybe one person trying to dabble to take it away from them, but if they do end up taking the Fire Giant, it's not going to do much, because Baskin and the boys are just that far ahead that they don't care if Hype unit have the Fire Giant. They don't care if they have the Fire Giant themselves. What I think Hype unit needed to do was just continue on a split push spree, just go as far as they could onto that tier 2 tower on that left-hand side, and make Baskin and the boys make a decision. And the decision right now is, how do we save Baskin? Oh, we don't. We just leave him by himself and get this mid-tier mid-Phoenix.
As I'm a Monster does land, but the shell was pop as the mid-Phoenix goes down. Cursed Onk was used. Layerssss going on to Baskin. Baskin having to use the Aegis. Autos are going on to Layerssss as Meerkat picks up Layerssss. Now it is a 5v4. Fire Giant helping them get a little respawn as Baskin picks up Wolves, saying, you can't kill me, I'll kill you. 3 members left of Hype unit. The mid-Phoenix is down. They might look to actually aggress, and they are, as Hype unit's Titan is under attack. Baskin trying to throw out some damage. GuyJ up in the air to King Arthur. Beads and Aegis expended, but look at this, Baskin trying to just stay alive, but who cares? Meerkat kills molluskk, the Titan kills NotGeno, but Baskin and the boys kill the Titan. Baskin and the boys taking it 2-0 against Hype unit, and Hype unit now go down to that lower losers bracket.
And they ended within 5 or 6 minutes. In fact, they ended within 3 from that call. Just straight up, let's get the Fire Giant, let's push down some towers, and let's end the game, because, well, we can. There's nothing they can do to stop us. And I'm sure that Des is going to have pretty much the exact same opinion that I have here. The draft didn't work out well at all. They drafted for this massive early game pressure. They drafted for this early game sustained composition, and it just never got a foothold in the game. From minute one, Baskin had complete control over the mid lane by himself, and when Baskin has control, he is not going to let you breathe.
Yeah, Baskin had control, Mask had control, NotGeno had control. It just seemed like that every person in Baskin and the boys just had control over their counter opponent. And Hype Unit, they played it well, and I think they played to their strengths of more of a, we're going to try to maybe do some iffy picks that may not necessarily work, but we're going to try and see if maybe we can throw them off. It just didn't seem to land for them, and it definitely landed for Baskin and the boys.
Yeah, I mean, you have a look at the performance from Les on both games. It wasn't his day today, but maybe it's his day on that lower bracket. Who knows? It's time for some redemption arc for them. And don't forget, Baskin and the boys, because they won this upper bracket final, they go into the grand finals tomorrow with a 1-game advantage. That could be huge for them. But given their performances today, I don't think they need it. I think they could have gone in with a 1-game disadvantage with their performances today and still come out on top.
Yeah, Baskin and the boys, just for me, was the overall clear favorite to win this. Blugie and the Woogies had a great season, but Baskin and the boys, I think Baskin just has plot armor just through and through because he's Baskin, right? Best player in the world, yeah. And I think collectively everybody's opinion. But I think that we have to throw it to the desk to see what their side of it was. Desk, anything else other than just the Baskin show?
I don't know, man. It seemed like the Baskin show continued there in game number 2. I mean, you get pressure in the mid lane on Scylla. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, you get a result like that. Lermy, it just felt like that draft never really came together. I just don't know that trying to outscale in the mid lane is really the strategy against Baskin and the boys, because there was just tension in the draft, I felt like, between the Thanatos that wants to be aggressive early and the Aphrodite that wants to farm up and scale until the late game.
I see what you're saying there, Agro. I can definitely agree that Layerssss and oBoronic, they kind of didn't match up on that same wavelength of wanting to be super aggressive, and I like the idea of having that Aphrodite to peel out Layerssss when he got in trouble, but that never seemed to work out, as neither of them were even able to pick up one single kill. I was really hoping that Layerssss could find some sort of clutch execute or get some kind of a lead online, but it just did not happen, and that goes to show you that Baskin and his boys are there to protect their main carry, and that for sure is their namesake.
It certainly worked out for them. I mean, Baskin didn't even do anywhere near the most damage on his team. He was 4th on his team in player damage because everyone was making plays, but certainly Baskin got the ball rolling. This first blood over in the long lane was critical to get Meerkat set up for a good laning phase. Mask on this Nike jungle was really, really potent. We saw he did have a level lead at the time, but he 100 to 0s Layerssss by himself. The damage output from that character is no joke, and I think that you really cannot undervalue a 40% slow for 6 seconds. That's so many seconds. I need a second hand to show you the amount of seconds that it is. That is a long time to be slowed for that duration. I kind of gotta say that I'm a believer in the Nike jungle now. I like it.
I'm kind of in between. I think that Nike jungle can work out from time to time, but it always helps when your Scylla is there to respond to all of your setup, and that is exactly what seemed to happen there. They just were playing on a totally different level than how we saw them on Thursday, and unfortunately for Hype, that was the same exact thing, but the other way around. And hopefully here, with Hype dropping down to the lower bracket, they will be able to come back in some sort of manner. This is not how we typically see them play. They're a much better team than this.
Well, they're getting a chance to reprise their victory over Blugie and the Woogies, as Blugie and the Woogies defeated Locked and Goated 2-0 in the losers bracket. Now they get a chance for some revenge up against Hype Unit that I think they're very much going to want. I mean, you know that there's some history between these teams already, not just this weekend, but also molluskk, formerly on this team, now on Hype Unit. You know, I'm sure that there's some contentious action between those two sides. I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how it goes down, because when you lose to your former teammate in the first round and you get a chance to get some revenge and knock them out later on, I feel like that's the best case scenario for you. You got to take advantage.
It must feel pretty good to see that Hype Unit word taken back there, and for sure some friendly contest between those two teams, but I wouldn't be surprised to see another 2-0 there for Hype Unit. I'm still a believer despite this kind of shaky performance. I think that they can really bring it back and try something different going into their set against Bloogie.
I think they have to. I think they've got to try and find some little bit of a different picks and ban style potentially, or just different play style altogether. It's going to be a lot easier whenever you don't have Baskin on the other side in the mid lane and Haddix playing King Arthur every game and just running it down solo lane. Last time it was a lot of dual lane control for them. We'll see if they want to emulate that as we get ready for set number 2. We're going to take a quick break, so stay tuned. We'll be right back with the next set.